Hi everyone. So I just wanted to come and talk today about how to help someone going through mental illness. It could affect 1 to 4 people. Statistically, you probably do know someone who is going through mental illness. It's always important just to know how to address this topic with them in an appropriate way that is respectful and that is supportive. It would really benefit the situation if you were able to not only recognize the mental illness that they're going through, but also learn more about the symptoms. And by knowing the particular diagnosis of what they have, that could definitely be helpful. If someone isn't diagnosed, sometimes they're still presenting with symptoms that are out of the ordinary and not really considered healthy. And it's always good though to always get clarification from a mental health professional. In order to get the right treatment, we have to know the diagnosis. We have to know what we're treating. So again, if they do have a diagnosis, you would want to learn more about the symptoms. It'll help you understand better why they're maybe reacting a certain way, or maybe why they're presenting in a certain way. Understanding the symptoms that they're going through, it kind of normalizes it a bit more. And again, just trying to destigmatize that mental illness. It sounds like a scary word. It sounds like this person could be, as people say, crazy or deranged, unfit. That's not necessarily what it means. I mean, there's different severities of cases, of course, but everyone who has anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, different kinds of mental illnesses are just people who need help. And statistically, people who have more support systems are able to get more treatment and, eventually are able to cope with the symptoms that they have. I'm not saying completely erase them. Maybe in some cases they are able to manage it to the point where they don't feel like they have the mental illness anymore. But it's one of those things where you have to kind of constantly check on and constantly cope. It's a chronic condition of the brain. When people lack this social support from family, friends, a listening ear, it usually leads to more isolative behaviors, which also leads to more harmful thoughts or actions that may lead to stuff that that may lead to consequences that can't be erased. Even if you're not a mental professional, you could still help in so many different ways. So first things first, you want to meet them where they're at. If they reach out to you regarding their mental illness, that signifies a lot. It's not easy to do. There's a lot of feelings of guilt, shame about this whole situation, the conversation. And it's hard to open up to people, and you shouldn't be pushing them into treatment if they're not ready. You could definitely present options. I could go with you to this mental health clinic down the street and we could enroll you. You could definitely present it in that way. You don't want to take over the conversation. You don't want to be making assumptions about their symptoms. You don't want to be making statements like, well, so-and-so has anxiety, he got over it, you'll be okay. Or, anxiety's not even that bad, I deal with anxiety too. I mean, that's not helpful in that situation. Not only are you turning it to you, but you're also minimizing the symptoms that they feel. And that, I've been in that situation before, and it sucks. Just having what you feel seem like it shouldn't be a big deal, but it really is debilitating. I mean, anxiety, depression, so many other mental health symptoms is very debilitating, and it's hard. It's hard to do daily things compared to people who do not have to deal with that. If someone gets diagnosed at a mental health clinic and, they tell you, they confide in you, they want your support, a good thing to be able to do is research the diagnosis. So you want to make sure that you're aware of the symptoms. You want to make sure that you research from reputable sources, educational sources, in case something happens that becomes more severe. Depressive symptoms, thoughts of suicide, self-harm, things like that. You want to make sure that maybe your friend, family member is aware of safety numbers, so mental health emergency numbers, and also yourself. If you are going to be that support person, it's always kind of good to have him on hand, not only to help this person, but just in general. There's the PET team, which is a psychiatric emergency team. And so they help with psychiatric emergencies, usually with danger to self or danger to others, or maybe some sort of psychotic break, which could lead to that. So knowing that number, I could put it down below in the description. It may change based off of states and all that, but I do have the one for California. 911 is also probably the fastest way to kind of get help. Making sure that you let them know the situation, what was told. They will probably ask for information about this person, so also having their address, phone number, name, all that in hand. The PET team, it is catered more towards mental illnesses and all that, but I have used it before on clients and all that, so it's a good service in the sense that we have it available. The bad thing is that with the PET team, they do sometimes take hours. And obviously in an emergency, you want to just get the situation de-escalated as quickly as you can, so that may not be the most reliable at times. So 911 is usually more, I wouldn't say drastically faster, but it is a difference. And also what you could do is obviously knowing what mental health clinic or hospital may be closest to this person's location, whether it's home, school, work, wherever it is that they're having these symptoms or these thoughts. Depending on whether the clinic is open, sometimes they take in walk-in psychiatric crises, and then they'll be there at the clinics. They'll be assessed by a therapist to see if there needs to be further assistance with hospitalization or medication administration. But with the hospital, you could do the same thing, kind of walk in psychiatric emergency. Sometimes they give medication the day of, the emergency, and also like a 30-day pill pack, just to kind of de-escalate the symptoms. But it's very important, if you do that, the hospitalization, or go to the hospital, to be able to also make sure that they connect you to a mental health clinic, or give you at least resources to a mental health clinic, because you don't want to end up going to the hospital, getting that medication, and it works for a little bit, it makes you maybe feel better, but then once that 30-day runs out, then you don't have any more medication, and you may go back to how you were feeling before. And so it's very important to connect to a mental health clinic in order to continue that. It's kind of like a continuity of care. If you are going to be an emotional support person for someone else, it could take a toll. I've been on the receiving end and on the giving end of this, and I could definitely say that does take a toll, carrying on the weight of these symptoms that this person, this family member, this friend is also dealing with. Because obviously, you're being there, you're listening, you're caring, but you are also carrying the concern and the worry and the fear, and that takes a toll on you. And so being mindful of that okay, I need to take care of myself too in order to take care of this person. Because if I don't take care of myself, then I'm also going to be jeopardized. Some people have to get mental health treatment for themselves when they're dealing with someone who has mental health symptoms. They're stressed out too. Maybe they're not dealing with a mental illness per se, but it's more of a stressful situation that they just have to kind of vent to someone who gets it, who's studied in the field. Mental illness, sometimes it could inhibit people from working, there's a lot of people who get disability and other assistance because of their mental illness, which again, that just signifies how severe it could be sometimes. So, seeing if they're eligible for that in case, if they're not able to work and provide for themselves, researching that maybe for them, helping them out with that process, and seeing what is required for that. So if a person is going to treatment for the first time, mental health treatment, again, it could be scary. And so maybe accompanying them to the first appointment, the clinician is able to get a secondary, perspective of these clients' symptoms and what they're experiencing. I mean, you don't have to go into the clinic knowing what you have, because that's their job. Clinics have to diagnose in order to be able to give the treatment, see what's best for them, basically. And with therapy, it's not only about learning coping skills of the symptoms that you're dealing with, or that maybe your friend or family may be dealing with, but also, psychoeducation, learning about the symptoms. Why is it that I'm feeling like this? Oh, well, that's a normal part of anxiety, or that's a symptom of depression. And sometimes going as a support person, it could help make the client, or your friend or family member, feel more comfortable with you there. Maybe it's intimidating talking to a person one-on-one. That's why it's very important to have communication with them, again, setting your boundaries as to what you could provide, but also, knowing what they want from you, what kind of support they want. Sometimes they literally just want, you to listen. You have to make sure that it comes from them. I'm ready for treatment. I want to do this. I'm scared. Can you come with me? Or, I just want you to listen. I just needed to vent. I'm having a stressful day. I don't know what to do. And just listening. Sometimes there's not always a solution to their problem. And so sometimes you just have to sometimes just listen and sit there with them. Be with them in their emotions. Be a shoulder to cry on if need be. Bring the tissues, whatever you need to do to help them through that. I mean, I know whenever we see someone break down like that, we want to jump in and help and save them. And sometimes it's not just that easy. It's a chronic thing, mental illness. And so, we have to come in with the understanding that I may not be able to fix this situation. Or, I could definitely help, but there's only so much I could do. Potentially, you could become aware of online support groups. Facebook is a great resource for that. There's actually a lot of groups, support groups of so many different things, not just mental illness. Community mental health centers that they don't ask for payments or anything, that it's free. You would just have to investigate what mental health centers are around. If they have a wait list, how long is it? Because, community mental health centers, they're free, but because they're free, there's a lot of people that go to them because, really a lot of people can't afford therapy. So sometimes it could be like, okay, well, I got in, but I'm only going to see a therapist once a month. And I don't feel like that's enough for me or for this person that I'm trying to help. And so sometimes we'd have to investigate on our own in terms of other clinics that may provide something more consistently, or even also privatized therapy is definitely more consistent. It could be more consistent, but the backside is that you would have to pay. A great resource that we do have is NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, I believe, and so they provide actually support groups for family members, free. You just have to kind of go to the NAMI website and just look up this information, click on the link, and it should pop up in your area. These support groups are for people who maybe have family members who are dealing with mental illness, if they need that additional support, or maybe learning more about the symptoms that their family member is going through. I believe there's the same organization, NAMI, has like kind of like an educational program. It's free, 12 sessions, I believe, for family and friends of people who are going through mental illness, to be able to educate themselves. And it's very important to have patience with a person that's going through mental illness, because in recovery, stabilizing mental illness is not always linear. You know, sometimes there's days where they're able to better manage their symptoms, and they seem happier, more energetic, maybe they seem more upbeat. But there's sometimes there's other days, and being aware that there possibly could be other days that they're not feeling like that they're feeling down, that they're feeling really bad, or unable to control their symptoms. And you have to be patient with them, because understanding that mental illness is never a choice. No one chooses to be having an anxiety disorder or schizophrenia or bipolar or depression. No one chooses that. No one would want to be in that position, honestly. As someone who has gone through who is going through their mental illness, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemies. Don't assume things about their situation. I mean, they may be your friend, they may be your family member, but maybe you don't know the whole story. Maybe you don't know what they've gone through. Maybe you don't know all the facts. And so, you know, we can't just make assumptions like, well, no, I mean, you have your family together, you know, you're well off. It seems like your life is really well put together. How do you have anxiety or depression or a mental illness? You don't have mental illness. You're fine. You know, saying things like that, again, it's very invalidating. And so I would stay away from making those assumptions, because sometimes, yeah, we don't know the whole story. So I think for now, that is kind of the basic information that I have in order to support someone with mental illness. You know, there's so many little subtopics that I could kind of go into, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys a general sense. You know, coming from a person who does have mental illness, to someone who maybe is in that situation with someone else, to be able to give you our perspective, at least my perspective, about how, if you've made it this far, I mean, just thank you for taking the time to watch this video and to want to help someone, you know, who is going through a tough time. You know, I thank you for that. And you know, if you guys have any questions or concerns, just put them down below. Just comment down below, and if you guys have any other mental health topics that you would want me to address, you could also put that down below. Bye, guys.